Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for April 11th, 2018.
Ooh.
Yes. This is Evan's first time hearing my tagline, I think. But I have a feeling it's going to be a great year for PC personal computing and games that you play on them. So I've been rolling with it, and it seems to have been proving, pretty well so far.
Yeah.
A lot of good games so far.
Yeah.
And more on the way. We're right on the cusp of E3, and I'm sure a bunch of new announcements and new things coming out this year. But let me introduce you guys before we get into that stuff. With me, of course, is Editor-in-Chief Evan Lottie. How you doing?
What's up? I'm good. Great to be back.
Glad to have you back. And Chris Livingston, staff writer, Battle Royale extraordinaire. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good.
Great. Some good stuff today. I think the big thing in PC gaming this week is the new kid on the block, Radical Heights. A pretty big surprise.
Yeah.
Coming from Boss Key Studios, a project they turned around in 5 to 6 months?
5 months, they said.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive, especially for what's there, even though it is pretty thin. We'll be talking about our time with that early on in the show. We'll be hitting up some news, and we'll be talking about after finishing Far Cry, and it's kind of sit with us for a couple weeks now. We're gonna discuss what we think maybe the future of Far Cry should be before closing with listener questions. Yes, Mr. Square Peg, just curious, will we be able to ask questions to the cast? You will at the end. So
that's
hold
how
on
this
to that.
works.
Yeah. And if you have something to say like on the topic at hand, don't be afraid to throw your comment in the mix. We do read the chat. We just don't have time to answer everything as we go. Before that though, let's talk about what we've been playing. Chris, what have you been jamming on, video game wise?
Well, I have still been playing Far Cry 5 pretty regularly, which I think is kind of rare. Usually, when I review a game, we play it a lot for a long time in a short period of time, and then I kind of feel like I'm ready to move on. But it's still something I go to probably just about every day for some more adventures and goofiness. I also been playing a bit of Conan Exiles.
Oh yeah.
I went to, they had a virtual event where I could play a build that is upcoming. I think they're launching on May 8th, I believe. So it had a lot of new features, new content, some changes, and I haven't actually played it in probably almost a year. So it was nice to see some of the changes that have been there for a while that I just haven't tried. Like there's free climbing. The game director, Joe Bilo, said it was kind of inspired by Breath of the Wild.
Of course.
And you can climb up cliffs, you can climb up forts, you can climb trees. Like, it's really fun. It just makes the world feel so much more accessible.
Better.
It's weird how just even something like that kind of made it feel like a whole new open world in a way.
Does it work like vaulting in PUBG or something? Or
you just it's like you just hit the space bar and you just start climbing whatever you're in front of. And you do have sorry, what?
No, go for it. I have more questions about this.
Your stamina does drain as you climb, so if you climb too high, and it doesn't restore while you're kind of clinging to something. So you kind of have to be careful. Like I climbed up a tree and realized I had no stamina left. I was like, oh no, I have to fall. Basically.
Well, that's a fun new problem to be in a survival game like that. So
yeah,
that's cool. I imagine there's some pretty fun hijinks. Like I remember that game getting into some pretty fun chases, and I imagine that adds just a pretty new welcome layer.
And also you see like players will kind of exploit the map by building a fort somewhere that you can't actually reach, like on the top of a peak or something. And it's like, what am I supposed to do to raid them? So now you can just climb up the peak and climb up the side of the fort. It's just fun. It's fun. It makes a real difference.
Cool.
I'm just curious how developers like that. You remember the game got a lot of attention at launch. I think I don't want to misquote, but it was something like it was Funcom, one of their most successful games ever.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, and what's the player base like for that game right now? Because there's just such like migratory audiences for games now, more than ever, I think, based on what game has the latest update, what are streamers playing, what are my friends talking about. There's all these like gravities pulling you back and forth. And how do you structure a project like that where at launch you have X amount of people and it's like this intense enthusiasm? It's like, oh man, we need to hire more people. We need to like plan our schedule. We need like more updates. We need, the community saying this or that. And like say half or 75% of those people just like run away to other stuff. And now you're like, oh wait, well, you're left to like plan a project around that. I'm like, I don't want to paint an unfair picture of the state of that game. I'm just curious, like how, in general, anybody making an online multiplayer living product or whatever plans for that stuff, because you could be Fortnite one week, and then someone else just
H1Z1
supplants. Yeah, so like in 6 months, you're a totally different situation, right? So
yeah, I mean, there's no game is a sure thing, or it has an infinite lifespan or guaranteed lifespan.
You've got to keep people's attention. Well, we should talk about how how Fortnite is doing that so well.
Yeah,
it shocks the hell out of me that I see these like. Think of a multiplayer game that's had trailers for items.
they do a great job. I mean, it's kind of an unprecedented,
like good trailers,
funny, charming, perfect for social platforms, and it's. I don't want to say it's an unprecedented cadence, because maybe it's not, but for a company with the reach and sort of like reputation Epic has, it's. I think it's going to be the new bar that a lot of these projects aim for. And I don't know if Conan will survive that or not, but I'm happy that it's still kicking around at the very least.
Sure.
So
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I looked around the time I attended this event, and they had still had about I think between 2,000 and 3,000 players, and you can have 40 people on a server. So it looks like Dave's audience, clearly not what they had at launch, but
yeah,
it's also one of those things where you people who played a while back will go and take another look, because I mean I really want to. It felt much improved. They took a lot of feedback from community to make the combat better. The map is like way bigger than it was. There's new biomes and there's new areas and dungeons, and it must be really tricky to develop a game like that, like you said, with this big crush of attention at the start, and a year to kind of try to keep that interest up.
I got one last question about Conan, and I think our audience is like really wants to know, like, how's the dick physics? Have they been improved? Have you noticed any?
I didn't run any tests to compare the original dick physics to the current or next build of dick physics.
What do we pay you for, Chris?
I mean, if you're climbing, why aren't you climbing nude? I wanted
to give a final dick evaluation once they left early access,
Okay, well, so I look forward to that. Good.
I'll make that a priority.
Pop that into our sauna schedule, and do not forget, please. Anything else, Chris?
I played something called Mother Simulator. Excuse me. Yeah, it's a game. You basically have a baby. It's a first-person game. You have a baby who needs a binky and
as they do,
some sort of food and.
Do you deliver the baby?
Change.
Is that part of it?
Yes.
Is there labor?
Yeah. Do you deliver?
No. You don't have a baby. You don't deliver a baby. There's a baby in your house that's presumably yours. And you need to take care of it. And you need to take care of yourself.
Willful suspension of disbelief.
Make no assumptions about the provenance of this child.
There's a baby near you. It reasonably could be yours.
Yeah.
In the house with you.
There's a baby.
It's a safe assumption to make.
You gotta put 2 and 2 together and figure I should probably do something with this baby.
Did you help the baby?
I did. I gave the baby a pacifier. I made baby formula. You have to wash everything. Like if you drop something on the floor, you can't just stick it in the baby's mouth. You have to wash it first.
Heavens no.
Of course not.
It feels like my first baby situation, because I have a feeling when someone has like 3 babies, like the third baby, you're like, I don't care if that's been on the floor. I don't care if the baby's dirty, or it's like you get over that paranoia of like, oh my gosh, my baby touched the floor and then put its fingers in its mouth. I think by the third one, you're probably like, whatever. So this feels like a first baby, like a baby prime type situation.
Proto baby. Yeah.
Anyway, also there was an ice age, so everything was covered with ice at one point.
Wait, what?
Are you speaking in general terms?
What the fuck are you talking?
In the context of this game?
I feel like I just
I'm
had a lapse.
in the course of taking care of my baby, there was an ice age, so everything was covered with. Why is this so hard to understand? This is like parenting 101. What do you do when there's an ice age?
Are you saying that this game isn't a highly serious simulation of parenting?
I think it's deadly serious. Okay. I think it brings in issues of the environment and what to do when your floor is covered with ice, but you need to change a diaper.
An important consideration. Yeah.
This tells me you're not ready to have children, Evan.
Clearly.
Well, we do live in San Francisco, so that's pretty much a decision made for us.
Impossible. I haven't seen a child in years.
Interesting fact for our audience: there's more.
So that's what I've been playing.
More dogs than children in San Francisco.
Absolutely true. They are the children. They've supplanted children.
It's a point of the census. Like, you can measure this stuff.
Ground zero for the dog revolution.
Yeah.
Is it fun, Chris? Is it? What are you doing? You're cleaning things. You're holding it and singing, cooing.
There's like a time limit. There's challenges like can you change the baby's diaper, get it food, and also deal with your own food poisoning. I feel like I'm maybe glossing over a few things here with ice ages and food poisoning. It's weird. It's a strange, weird game. I'll have more on the site about it.
Okay, cool.
Including videos.
Looking forward to it. Does that round up your now playing, Chris?
Yeah, Far Cry Conan and taking care of a baby during an ice age. That's it.
The huge. What about you, Evan?
Far less interesting than that. I continue to play a lot of Rainbow Six.
Ooh, yeah.
The latest update is called Operation Chimera, I guess it's pronounced, right?
Yep.
Mythical animal. I don't know much about those.
Yeah. Those combo animals.
Anyway, so the main additions, they had the PvE thing. That's actually now ended as of like
I forgot it was temporary.
A week or so ago.
I didn't get to play enough of that.
I wasn't super crazy about it in retrospect. Happy to have something that resembles a single-player campaign in the game, but the enemy design, a little bit uninspired, could have been a little bit more interesting, but, hey, like, why should we complain? It's a free thing. Yeah. Everybody got to play. They added a bunch of new cosmetics, if you're into that.
I am.
I guess just what I'm more focused on now is the impact that the new characters, Lion and Finka, have had on the meta of Siege, which just continues to be one of the most popular games on Steam. It's, continues to grow and have, like, a really healthy audience. So the current meta, depending on, like, what level you're playing at,
sure.
There's just lots of stuff around detection and lurkers and managing lurkers. So, if you played Siege, there's like attacking side and a defending side, right? So the attacking side now with Lion has a character who, for about 3 or 4 seconds, detects any enemy player who is moving if they're moving.
Yeah.
Okay, also within this roster of 36 characters, there's Jackal, who basically detects enemy footprints and detects the position of defenders if they're not moving.
Right.
And you've got Dokkaebi, who is she was added in Operation White Noise. She's also an attacker, and she buzzes the cell phones of all the defenders. So you can have this kind of like ambient audio cue of exactly if somebody's behind a wall, and you have this like passive sense of if somebody's nearby. Really useful. So if you have like 2 or all those people happening in a match, and you're a defender, you're just getting harassed by noise, and you're like, oh my god, all these alerts. So you can simultaneously be like, fucked if you're standing still and fucked if you're moving in the same span of 5 or 10 seconds. That's not a good position to be in. Not very comfortable.
No.
And then you've got buffs to characters like Blitz, who's like a shield bearing guy who can, from the safety of his shield, he can flashbang you. He's a lot faster and kind of more. There was actually an exploit.
He was pretty broken there.
There was an exploit with him for about 7 or 9 days where he just had an incredible hipfire accuracy. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So, yeah, I'm still kind of feeling out how I feel about it's sort of like tamp things down a little bit. Lurkers feel really reined in by these new mechanics like Lion. It's so easy to just hunt them down and bag them if you have a coordinated team.
Sure.
And that's not something to discount. Maybe it's a cool thing that these mechanics kind of force you to work together. I guess what I'm hoping for is that somehow, because there's a discrepancy between the number of attackers and defenders in the game, the upcoming Italian defenders that are going to be added, we're not exactly sure when, in a couple months, that they somehow have some kind of interplay with this stuff. They cancel it somehow. Based on a leak, we know that we think that one of the next Italian operators is going to use like a decoy or a hologram type thing.
Could be detectable maybe by those those abilities.
Or he might be able to appear as a different operator or something like that. So that sounds interesting. I just, what I don't want is just more gadgets and mechanics that just sort of layer on each other in a way that is kind of overwhelming at some points. I don't know, but the anxiety of getting your phone buzz and being detected in that moment is very tense, but it's not the kind of tactical experience I want where I feel a sense of freedom to think and execute stuff. So I don't know. The main thing I think the game needs is just more maps at this point. We didn't get a new map in the most recent update because we got this PvE mode. It really needs another fresh, interesting map like Tower. And just try some new stuff. I think, sort of takes advantage of the operators that have been added in the meantime. Anyway, it's a terrific game. I'll stop talking about it. The other thing I've been playing is two things real quick.
Yes.
Ion Maiden.
Yeah.
This came out in February. It's still in early access. So 3D Realms.
3D Realms. That's
creators of Duke Nukem, among other things. They made a new build engine shooter, first-person shooter.
If you don't know Build Engine was the original Duke Nukem engine.
Yeah, Duke Nukem 3D engine.
Yeah. Excuse me, Duke Nukem 3D.
So that's cool. And
also, is it fun? How can you make a good FPS and modern FPS in that engine?
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I finished it in, let's see, my Steam time is 0.7 hours. So that's what 48 or 50 minutes or something.
Is it complete?
The definitely not.
Okay.
So it's an early access.
Right.
I forget how they phrase it exactly, but there's sort of one chapter playable.
Yeah.
And it'll take you less than an hour, I think, to run through. But the thing that strikes me about it is just how fun the visual style of that game is. There's been stuff like Strafe.
Yeah.
And there's
Dusk.
Which Dusk is and these games are very much in the same kind of category of, we love Doom, we love Quake, we're kind of bringing that stuff back, but the fact that they did it kind of within their own technology, right? I wasn't crazy about Dusk. I played through a good amount of it. Strafe had its own kind of sets of issues, and they've made a lot of improvements in the meanwhile that I need to go back and check out, frankly. But there's something about just the visual style of Build, the inherent aspects of the engine itself and what it does in terms of rendering sprites and the feeling of movement that I found just super appealing. Part of it's nostalgia. Part of it's what it means to I can remember the feelings I have when I played Duke Nukem as a kid on my uncle's computer and walking out into a big expansive area and be wow, I know there's 3 secrets in here somewhere. I'm going to find them. Or I know something in here is breakable, and just the way the skyboxes look and stuff like that. So part of it's just my personal preference for that artistic quality, but it's fun too. The feeling of that kind of skateboardy Doom movement where you have really slippery, quick movement. You can do some amount of, I wouldn't call it bunny hopping, but you can jump freely without decelerating.
Okay.
Which is cool. The game definitely needs more enemies and weapons, and it's a work in progress. But I intend to play the whole thing as they complete it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's Ion Maiden.
Yeah, I think it's $20 on Steam right now.
$20 on Steam, early access right now. Cool.
Is it completely retro? If this had come out back in that time, would it have just been what I mean is have shooters of the past 15, 20 years informed it? Does it feel like it's an innovation on the retro thing, or is it 100% a retro game?
I think it's 90% a retro thing.
Okay.
The only thing I can think of, that's a super good question, Chris. It's almost like you do this for a living. the one thing that stood out to me as like a modern thing that they grabbed. Well, for one thing, okay, two things. You can. So there are health kits that you just pick up and you instantly heal, and they're like you can also press a button to spend a med kit. So there's some of that, but there's a weapon in the game called a bowling bomb. So it has this kind of it's still a sprite, but it has physics along the ground and it'll bounce around. But it's a proximity detonation bomb that you roll, so it only detonates based on proximity. If you don't manage to roll it close enough to an enemy, it won't detonate, and then you can pick it back up again as ammo. And I feel like that's a concept that wouldn't have existed.
Yeah,
that kind of like complex weapon behavior. But yeah, otherwise there's a shotgun and a pistol and a melee weapon.
They feel good to shoot.
An SMG.
Nice animation.
They played, good enough.
That kind of stilted 3 or 4 frames.
Yeah. The art's pretty good. I'm just hoping it gets weirder and wackier. The other final. You guys remember a game called Bombshell?
Yes, that was the one prior to. I didn't have much hope for Ion Maiden.
So it's bizarre. I mean, it might be like a minor theme of our show now. We're going to be talking about Radical Heights. So this game is, I guess, in the Bombshell universe, I think, or at least has the same main character, I think. Yeah. So that game was not received well when Three Realms released it, and now they're sort of, it's weird. They're sort of taking, I'm not going to say failure, but like poor reception, and sort of plugging it into the old thing, the old like retro engine that they used to make, which is such a weird and like interesting response, And I don't know, the game is like overwhelmingly positively reviewed on Steam, so that's cool. That's a cool story. Into the Breach. I don't know how much you guys have talked about in the show.
Here and there, past couple weeks, Wes has talked about a decent amount. Still liking it.
I put buckets of time into that game.
Here you're going for a hard mode win with some special squads. Hard mode is
I only play on hard now. No, it's Into the Breach is my forerunner for my favorite thing in the year so far.
High praise.
I know it's only April, but it's Godzilla chess. It's like elegantly designed. I think the thing that I glom onto most with this game is if you're not totally unacquainted with Into the Breach, right? It's turn-based strategy. You're controlling 3 mech characters. They have pilots in them. You're on an isometric grid, and you're fighting these like giant insect enemies that are trying to destroy Earth. And there's sort of it's by the creators of FTL, so it's sort of like a rogue-like element in that you play as a run, and if you fail, you can sort of take one of your pilots and bring them in, like time travel them into your next run, if that makes sense.
Right.
So all the enemy movements are revealed first, and part of the fun and so-called like puzzle is sort of unraveling that problem of like, okay, this monster is going to attack that building, and this one's going to destroy this, and this one's going to like jump over here, throw this projectile. How do I block this? And like, I only have so many moves with my guys and so many resources to sort of counter this stuff. And you have to make decisions about like, okay, I guess I'll lose this building this turn, but it's better than losing this character or something. Right. So it's incredibly good. I mean, it's like one of the best turn-based games I've played in the past couple years. More than anything, I love that it respects my time. I love games like XCOM. I love, Darkest Dungeon, campaign level strategy games that I'm putting 60 hours into, but it's so wonderfully segmented, right? Like I can play a map, I can play an island, which is a series of maps. I can play a run, which is like up to 4 islands and then a boss battle. And I can just stop at any turn and the game is saved. It boots up in 5 seconds. Like all that stuff matters to me disproportionately as I get older. Just the ability to like eat and stuff and walk away, do laundry, and it sounds simple, but it means a lot to me. But above that, like the big thing that I love about it is the way that these mech squads are designed. So I believe there's 9 of them. And you can create your own. You can do random squads of the 3, and they'll kind of have different chess piece behavior, right? So you'll have one that grabs an enemy and throws it in the tile behind them. You'll have one that has an electric whip that does chain damage toward any adjacent enemies or allies or buildings. And you've got, various like projectile ones that like fire stuff and then force movement, or you have a teleport one that swaps positions. So you have all these kind of different behaviors, right? And the way they're arranged into squads, they all have different kind of themes almost. Like the first one in the game is all based on like really obvious direct damage.
Right.
But another one called like the Steel Judoka is themed around judo and throwing, right? Like as a martial art, basically.
Yeah.
So it's all about pushing your enemy, not doing damage, which you can, all enemies have hit points and you want to kill them usually, but by pushing them into advantageous positions where maybe this enemy will attack one of its allies, and that's how you destroy it. So you're sort of given these like I talked about this game on 3 Moves Ahead, our pal Rob Zachney's strategy podcast, and Troy Goodfellow. And I think the comparison I made is like when you try out one of these new squads, it's like being handed, I don't know, like a katana, a spatula, and like a flamethrower, and like okay, figure it out. Like figure out how you can find synergy between these 3 random things. And like okay, let's try another squad. Bubblegum, a trampoline, and roller skates. Like figure it out.
Okay.
So because they all have like different interactions. And at first you're like, because like the most difficult squad to use in the game, in my opinion, is gosh, what are they called? It's the acid themed one. I had struggled with them. I probably had like 12 runs before I was able to beat the game on hard with them. But they take damage by attacking, basically. Like most of them take damage. Like one of them has this like it jumps off its giant legs and it lands and it sort of hurts itself as it hurts enemies. But by killing enemies, they regain health. It's almost like this life drain type thing.
Yeah.
And one of the units can coat other enemies in acid, but they can't do any other damage himself. So you have to get super creative in how you use this stuff. And you make these natural discoveries of like, you develop little techniques and moves to how to utilize them in a smart way. And that feeling of discovery, again, this one of the lovely things about the game, and I think one of the things PC Gamer values about games in general is doesn't hold your hand, doesn't sort of say, okay, I'm going to sit you down and like explain in a tutorial how to do this and that. It's like, no, I'm going to trust you that you're smart enough as a strategy player to figure this out on your own and sort it out, and good luck. So
damn,
it's great. It's great. And our pal Ben Prunty does the soundtrack.
That's right.
And it's a really good one.
Really good soundtrack.
Probably his best stuff yet. If you like FTL's music.
That's Into the Breach, and that's our yet another glowing recommendation on staff.
It's real good.
So check it out as soon as you can. Cool. Anything else, Evan?
No, that's way too much. But that's all.
So I'll keep it brief, but I've been playing a few things. Off the back of Far Cry 5, I did not expect to dive directly back into another Ubisoft game of similar structure, but I went back and in a weekend played about 20 hours of Assassin's Creed Origins, and I didn't expect to like that game. I played about 6 hours when it first came out, and kind of fell off it. But it really takes a minute for the scope of that world and the detail within to really reveal itself, because it's fucking huge. First of all, it's so big, and big does not always mean good, for sure. But what I appreciate about an open world, personally, is spaces dedicated to realism, not necessarily to gameplay, so to speak. Like, not everything feels like it's built to be a video game level,
right?
Or made for this kind of interaction to happen. This is where the bears will hurt you, and this is where no. There are huge deserts full of nothing, and they are gorgeous. Some strange things can happen within them, but it's Egypt. There are big deserts, and you can walk through them and feel like you're there. As close to a game can get, I suppose. It doesn't hurt that the game is just like the engine itself is beautiful. The detail gone into some of the art and the systems within each city. The citizens are pretty dopey up close, but I guess like at a bird's eye, when you see kind of the hustle and bustle going on in one city, while you're sitting atop like a mountain above it, and you can see mountains over here in the distance, a desert spreading out over here. You can see, traders, with their carts moving along the roads. It really feels. It's one of the, I think, the most incredible settings I've ever seen in a video game, as far as like just feeling alive and so well realized. It carried me through, even though I was doing sort of the same shit you always do in Assassin's Creed, which is assassinate people and clear outposts and yada yada.
Did we give an award for best setting? And
I think at the end of the year we did give it the best setting. So so well deserved in my opinion. It's up there.
Yeah, like on the large scale and also on the small scale, it's pretty amazing. Like you can stare out at the horizon and see amazing things, and then you can kind of examine like the tile work of a particular sidewalk, and it's not just, doesn't look like someone like got pasted there and pasted 100 other places. It looks like a really slightly different thing. It's really pretty neat.
It's hard for me to comprehend, and I don't know.
That's what you get with one of the biggest studios and publishers in the world, right? That kind of macro and micro detail in art.
Definitely, they've kind of figured out that multi-studio approach to development. They've nailed it. I mean, between that and Far Cry 5, which is also like a very well, realized place. So, open world stuff, Ubisoft has got it nailed. And if you have yet to check out Assassin's Creed Origins, and you're kind of like, fuck those games, this one is, I think, has potential to change like the biggest naysayer's mind. So give it a shot, maybe in the future. More Fortnite. Obviously, I've been playing a lot of Fortnite and still liking it. I'm really starting to get the building system down. I've found a good key map configuration, and I'm starting to switch between tile types as quickly as I can, weapon types now, and assemble some basic forts on the go. Some good, nice, like defensive fortifications, and those stupid double layered like ramp systems that people make.
Right. Where it's like floor ceiling.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So you're protecting your back as you run away from somebody vertically.
Right. It's so like the game does nothing to sort of ease you into that stuff, because I don't think Epic knew what was going to come of the building system when they made this game. But it's been weird to see a community like I don't think it should have worked. Like, this is the kind of thing I don't think a studio would sit down and like deliberately design, like, and think people will get this. This is a good idea. But they turned around this project in a very specific set of circumstances and said, we're going to keep the building system in and see what happens, I guess. And in spite of itself, the community and players like found a way to make it interesting and competitive and fun, and I'm starting to understand it. It's so strange to me, but
I think one of the things I really like about this genre, and you touched on it in a way I like there too, is the way that Battle Royale is almost resistant to the concept of game balance. Yeah. And I don't mean that totally literally. Like, certainly you want to handle certain weapon recoil and stuff like that, and weapon propagation and all that kind of stuff. And there's an element of map design in the balance, but Epic wasn't like, shoot, let's like really think carefully about how we balance this battle royale, like our building system in the context of battle royale, and we're probably going to have to remove some stuff and really rethink it. They're just like, no, like, shove this game into battle royale as is. As is UI, systems, like map, right? I mean, they've changed the map now.
Yeah, it's curated and much more sensical than at first.
Weapon recoil, perspectives, all this stuff, and they just had a replay system, which is cool. So, but like, and it's not as if like there was some massive discrepancy in balance. Have you heard anybody complain about, oh, SMGs are way overpowered, or this strategy of going to this location is just so OP? I've heard no one say anything is OP throughout the lifespan of Fortnite so far, and maybe I don't pay close enough attention.
There's some dismay about shotguns, but even that's like...
Yeah.
I mean...
I do see a lot of that.
Yeah, that's less that they're overpowered and that they're just like favored in a certain set of circumstances. Like, but you're right. It's because I think there's so many tools and so many ways to just dig yourself out of this bad situation with the building tools that people have just sort of made up, and some of the new shit they've added, including, you know, the launch pads, which give you another chance to skydive, and rocket riding, and all these weird exploits that are you know, any other like multiplayer shooter would say we can't implement this without like months of testing. There's like, you know, go, we'll see what happens.
but isn't it just interesting that I think it's partly because you don't hear this complaint because players accept they're 1 in 100. You're being thrown into a maelstrom, and every match is just a total roll of the dice.
Yeah,
you know, the game's going to propagate stuff in the way that it does. The airdrop vehicle is going to travel in the trajectory that it does. The circles are going to like go where they go, and you know, element of luck of the draw, whatever. Like, you know, maybe the gods look over me. You know, the Fortnite gods look over me today, or maybe they don't. But when you think about it, this game, you know, the airdrop mechanic, whatever, that's just a spawning mechanic. Like, there's nothing too special about it, other than maybe the item and weapon system and like resources. You know, it's kind of an arena shooter blown up. Yeah. You know, in a way, and if you think about, there's something about like level playing fields, because in Counter-Strike and 5-on-5, people go nuts if people increase if Valve increased the damage per bullet value of the AK by 1, there would be controversy and discussion. You know, there would be some amount of scandal there.
Uproar.
If they added, you know, if they increased the the fire rate or something, you know, if terrorists had 10 more hit points, or like if the terrorists spawned 15 feet closer to a bomb site, there would be uproar. It would fundamentally change the game. So there's something about like at a certain size of game, it's just like the developer accepts that there's only so much that they can do, and the players accept that like they're sort of submitting themselves to the chaos of the world, and sort of the design of the game itself. Like it stops becoming about balance, and it starts becoming about how well can I do in the context of this like absurdity and randomness, right?
What interesting ways can I respond or be destroyed? And I think balance updates in these games are less about, like you said, leveling the playing field, and more about like massaging this part of the you know, pool of variables to see like what kind of rippling effect it can have on the rest of the game. And like players, like, I think, look forward to seeing what is broken next rather than you know, fear it. And that's a big reason why I like that game. I don't play it necessarily to win, because I know the odds are against me. I play it to I don't know, like for personal victories for sure, but because I don't know, every conflict, it sounds like back of the box like marketing, but every conflict feels different, or at least in some way. It happens in a different place. You know, we're in Flush Factory, and we're fighting amongst toilets in sort of a warehouse, and someone might have building materials and I don't, and you know, how do I counter that? Do I have any explosives? Maybe I can get the high ground by throwing this impulse grenade and shooting myself up to the ceiling, and I don't know, there's so many variables that it's just fun to think on the fly like that. Fortnite. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite. And we've been talking about what we've been playing for a while, so let's move on here to some quick news. We're going to run through, I think, what are some interesting headlines for this week. The first of which is that the Dauntless Open Beta is beginning in May. That's May 24th. And if you don't know what Dauntless is, I'm going to link to the story in chat. It's a free-to-play take on sort of the Monster Hunter genre. We've been in the closed beta for a while now, and you can still get in if you're that impatient by paying. And while it is no Monster Hunter World, which is coming to a PC this fall, it's a really, I think, they've done a great job expanding on the monster pool, tweaking the combat system and making it more complex and interesting, adding new weapon types. They've recently just like thrown loot boxes out the window and said, we're not doing that. We're going to revamp the crafting system and make it more interesting. So I think it's definitely one to follow in the free-to-play space, especially because, you know, you can pay for Monster Hunter, $60, or you can play this thing for free. It's a good option for this kind of genre that doesn't really have much of an identity on PC. I know they're like, there's God Eater and so on. So
it's cooperative too. I mean, is Monster Hunter?
Yes, it's cooperative. Okay. This one is like,
yeah,
I think there's a huge emphasis on multiplayer, more so than Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, you get in there with 4 people and some of the higher tier monsters. If you're into like kind of the loot grind and min-maxing stats, there's a lot to dig into there. And I haven't touched it in about 2 months, so I'm sure it's changed quite a bit. But you know, I think it's a good one to have on the PC if it's free to play, just to hop in. Good option for everyone.
Yeah.
Next headline: Fortnite 3.5 patch notes hit today. I'm gonna run through them real quick. The basic gist is that porta-forts are here. Epic added a brand new item. It's a grenade, basically a grenade type, a throwable. You throw it down, and this massive metal fort sprouts out. It looks like a mushroom with tires in the center tower that bounce you up to the top. And I've already seen it used in interesting ways. Like, it's not just like an instant defensive, position for you, but I've seen it used offensively. Someone gets right next to a player, throws the thing down, so they're both trapped in there, bounces to the top, builds a cap over the middle tower, and tosses, like, makes a hole and tosses a bunch of explosives down there. So basically just,
real quick.
Yeah.
So, like, what are the spawning limitations for a thing like this? Because it just seems like a programming nightmare for Epic to have a grenade that spawns a tower anywhere you throw it. Like, there's got to be some limitation. Like, indoors, it's got to not go
I don't
off.
know. I'm curious to see. It just came out today. I haven't had a lot of time to look at streams.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see. You already have these big building battles where people are building these just messy, like, non-Euclidean towers into the sky. And what happens when you throw one, like, at the top of that, like, or like you said, underground in a build? Like, I don't know.
Architects hate this Fortnite strategy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that's cool.
Yeah, or if you have 50 versus 50, and your 50 mates all throw a fort grenade in the same spot.
There should be a porta-fort only mode.
Again, balance, right? Who gives a fuck?
Who cares?
As long as it's, like, bizarre and fun, like.
Yeah, it's fun. Also announced as a 50/50 version 2, a temporary mode is coming back. It's exciting. That's like one of my favorite temporary modes. It's so ridiculous. These big waves of towers at the end, just like slowly encroaching on each other, and rockets back and forth. It's kind of unlike anything I've played before. Some new cyberpunk gear coming to save the world.
Are skins really $20 in this game? Like,
yeah, there are $20 skins in this game.
That's a game. That's a video game in 2018. That's a whole ass game.
It's pretty wild, but it's working. They're making a lot of money with this free model. I mean, it's that, or what? Overwatch, you can drop bucks and bucks and bucks on loot boxes and maybe get the skin you want. Or
I guess,
I don't know. There's a weird.
Just the proportion. It feels crazy to me.
It is pretty wild.
Wow, like, that's how much I pay for a shirt.
It's like actual clothing,
right?
Rather than a digital bunny suit with a hockey mask.
I played PC games in the 90s, James. This is all new to me. Not really.
Other big items are the replay system. Thank God I can finally get some new header images for the website. It's a pretty robust replay system too. There's some bugs with it right now, but some cool drone camera features built in, and exposure settings, aperture, focal length. Expect dubstep.
Yeah, we don't hear much about hacking in Fortnite. I'm not sure if it's a prevalent thing, but certainly that's a useful tool in policing this stuff for players.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's great.
Basically the porta-fort bug fixes. There's a whole list. I'll link to it in chat, but big changes coming. I think they're aiming for like every 2 weeks to have some major update or item at this point, and stuff.
Sorry, every 2 weeks a major update?
Well, excuse me, major as in like, here's a new item, or here's, something that like in Destiny 2 would be announced on a blog and developed 6 months later.
That's so quick. I mean, I guess like League of Legends in its heyday was doing champions every 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Something like that. But I know that Epic has a big chunk of their staff working on this game. Mm-hmm. I know the Unreal Tournament team moved over to do Battle Royale, and I'm sure like after Paragon, got canned, that where else are they going to go unless they have some other properties?
Yeah.
I think Fortnite is going to be their focus for the foreseeable future.
Fingers crossed for facing worlds and flat cannons in Fortnite, because that's what will get me to play.
Hey man, you never know.
Personally, I just find the building stuff too fiddly. I can't, without starting that debate. I can't.
No, it's there's no debate there. It's the most alienating thing about that game, and it puts a skill ceiling into the top 10. Like, you can get to the final 10 easy in this game, but as soon as you do, it's a different game entirely. It's like a perversion of shooters.
Yeah.
That is fun if you spend the time learning how to ride a bike and make the path for the bike. So yeah, patch notes, exciting stuff. Another big announcement. I don't know if you haven't been on our homepage in the last week or so. We launched a board gaming channel.
Yeah.
And I know people listening might think those aren't in the computer. Sometimes they are.
Actually, they are quite often, and increasingly.
Increasingly. And there's a direct kind of relationship between, I think, a lot of the board games that we like and the games that we sort of cherish and evangelize on PC.
For sure. It's been a golden age for board games for a long time. It's been a golden age for PC gaming for a long time. And there's just a lot of interesting crossover in terms of the games that our audience, you guys really like reading about, Crusader Kings, complex ass, interesting board games, or like games that have kind of a turn-based strategy element that almost have the look and feel of a board game. And then you've got the fact that publishers like Fantasy Flight, which is prolific, they're probably the biggest board game publisher in the world. They've started their own digital studio, and they're working on stuff there, and they make stuff like X-Wing miniatures and a lot of other amazing stuff. So yeah, there's like just ever increasing crossover, and we've done like gift guidey type stuff for board games in the past, and it's gotten really good reception. So yeah, it's something like we like a lot, and it's not going to take over our website or anything like that, but it's a nice addition there,
I think
if you're interested in it.
Super helpful supplemental culture for PC gaming,
and certainly a lot of PC games have actual board game adaptations.
Yeah, definitely.
Civilization and XCOM are two on my mind. But there's been at least one World of Warcraft video game and trading card game. I think that's now defunct now that Hearthstone exists.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of others too. Yeah.
Yeah. So a bunch of interesting crossover. Expect a lot of interesting. Go follow John Bolding on Twitter or other social networks. He's kind of seen up a lot of our coverage for that. He's doing a great job so far. This morning I saw him tweeting about. He tweeted this like image of just the rad black on white like demon metal like imagery, and I was like, wow, that's a cool T-shirt. And he's like, no, it's a board game. And he used a phrase something like necro demonic turn-based strategy, and I was like,
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. Where do I buy this?
Sold.
So look forward to stuff like that. We hope to highlight some interesting sort of not just the popular, known franchises and stuff as well. So, yeah, board games. PCGamer.com/board-games is where you can find all of our coverage in the future. Cool. But let's talk about the Battle Royale-shaped elephant in the room.
Just like the latest Battle Royale.
The latest one, one of many. Radical Heights. And if you do not know about this game, Radical Heights is a battle royale game developed by Bosky Studios, who you may know from the more recent arena shooter Lawbreakers. Unfortunately, Lawbreakers, as much as we liked it, we had a great time with it. There was a couple weeks there we were playing it pretty regularly. Yeah. It didn't find an audience, and it's kind of puttered out since. And Bosky has acknowledged that in publicly. And shortly after that announcement, said, "Hey, guess what? We got another game."
Shortly meaning within 24 hours, they announced and released a game.
Yeah, pretty wild.
They announced released.
And Radical Heights is a battle royale game that. How would you guys describe this? We all three of us have played some of it at least.
Chris, you take this one. You were, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the idea is it's an 80s inspired or 80s drenched game show. So it's battle royale, but it's treated like a game show. it's very kind of, it's got this level of obnoxiousness that I sort of enjoy. In fact, could even use a bit more of, instead of, just running into a house, picking up weapons. There's, cash registers that you punch open and get cash, and then go to vending machines, and there are prize showcases, and there's, it's sort of like a weird 80s game show in a way.
Yeah.
And everything's very sort of bright and neon. There's crazy things like trampolines that you can throw down and jump off of. There's zip lines. There's Wheel of Fortunes you can spin to win items. So it's got a real game show kind of feel to it. I don't know, kind of a bit of a Smash TV vibe.
Yeah.
That I think it doesn't quite carry through the whole round. Like the thing about it is, like, Battle Royale has this kind of lull to it. At least the Battle Royale games I've played, where initially you lose a lot of players sort of early in the early combat, and then as it narrows down to the last few, there's kind of a quiet period, and it feels really weird in this game because this game is kind of has this obnoxious, loud feel to it, but then it gets very quiet. Not much happens, and that it feels like it stands out a lot more here because you kind of expect this arcadey, fast-paced thing to continue for the whole round. But I've been finding the late game very, very slow, and it feels kind of out of place.
Yeah, it's this is a definite pre-alpha situation. That's a subjective label, and developers, one person's beta is another person's alpha, is another person's, full release in some cases. But yeah, it's very early. There's a lot of gray box buildings, so it's super easy to poke holes in a game like this.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about with the aesthetic aspects there and kind of the game show stuff, in the article that we published, the discussion about this game that we published, the three of us actually, on the site just an hour or so ago. Yeah, we all kind of glommed onto there's something here in the game show, I think. Like, that as a theme, as an idea, that it's, Fortnite, as whimsical as it is, it's kind of just, what is its theme? Like, what is it inherited this like weird apocalypse thing from its predecessor game, if you call it that. And PUBG is its military, I guess. The theme is still like super undercooked in PUBG. And you've got these like weird homage costumes now, so it doesn't have a sense of humor necessarily. It's kind of in this weird space between like really, really serious like Arma style combat, because that's its inspiration. Anyway, so like this game has a like, what do you call them, game show host that like like yells in your ear sometimes, and it's kind of discordant and actually like grating at some points, but is at least like, oh, that's fun. And it reminds me of Monday Night Combat. I don't know if you guys played that game at all.
Oh yeah. Okay. That was a good time.
I think you dropped money in that game too. Anyway, in terms of its tone, and I was like, oh man, I really love Monday Night Combat. It also reminded me of Crackdown a little bit, the sort of dark sense of humor slightly. It's like, a brutal death match, but it's also kind of laughing at the world. In Smash TV, you mentioned you're like literally picking up VCRs out of prize rooms and stuff. So some clear inspirations there. But yeah, this stuff needs to be way better integrated. Like all the kind of fun game showy stuff kind of just exists as objects in the environment. Yeah. Like stations that you walk up to and like, spin the wheel and try and get this gun or whatever, or pay cash to get this gun out of a vending machine. I want it, and like the world itself just kind of otherwise feels like a normal, I guess what is becoming normal, like Battle Royale world. There's like parking lots and houses, and it's like there's a gas station. It's kind of vaguely suburban and colorful. The world itself doesn't feel kind of imbued with these ideas. It doesn't feel like the map reflects the setting, if that makes sense, and like this 80s game show thing. So I want more of that, because that's where the potential of this game is, I think, because it's otherwise a very arcadey shooter. It is, compared to like the recoil of Fortnite even, it's super generous right now. Very little bullet drop over long range. There is like aim down sights. It's the same kind of like third person controls that you'd expect in PUBG and stuff, where you just like single click into optics, or you hold click to sort of get that over the shoulder closer view in third person, and that feels good enough. But like every aspect of the game otherwise the art in particular, the animations. I'm not even going to worry. I'm not going to even talk about stuff like hit detection and like fret about that. It just needs tons of work, tons of polish at this point. But it's free. Right now with H1Z1 and like a couple other kind of like unpopular battle royale games. It is one of the only games in this genre that's free on Steam. That's kind of what it has going for it, I think, so far. Yeah,
I think, and I worry that the initial knee-jerk reaction is. This is a whole other conversation. Is like to shit on what Bosky does because it's popular to hate on Lawbreakers and because whatever they do next is obviously a cash-in. That stuff aside, like it is a functional, fun thing to play, and it is free, and it's occupying a space that I think a good space to occupy in battle royales because it has that arcadiness as we talked about, and it doesn't have the building system of Fortnite, which is just so alienating and has a skill ceiling that as high as you can build it. And PUBG is maybe too tactical and militaristic, and the ballistic system is maybe too realistic for some people. And there's to really get into.
There's like a weightiness. There's like the input lag on PUBG. I don't know if a lot of let's just like type that onto YouTube, and it'll sort of open your eyes to the input lag that you're experiencing in that game. And they've done so much work on it.
Yeah.
But it's still there. The game feels heavy, I think, still in its animations and the transitions that you make getting into a car. All this simple stuff that I feel sensitive toward and just sort of like adds up over time and makes me not want to play it. Radical Heights. One of the again, this game has tons of issues and like it's super early and like. You're not going to be super impressed if you dive in there in terms of the art and the animations and the sound design and stuff like that. But one of the things it has going for it compared to these other battle royale games is you jump in, you hit the ground, and like you have a gun in your hands and you're firing it. You're not worrying about like the mechanics of aiming and all this stuff. You're not worried about gathering enough wood, and so there is kind of an accessibility there, I think. The recoil is very friendly to new players and stuff like that. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what niche this game exists in now. That the genre's expanding and expanding. Like where does the audience live for a game like this?
I think they're trying to find it. And there's a lot of things I like about it that are refreshing for battle royale. No fall damage for one. Like it's so fucking funny when you just spawn out in the sky, and then I was like panicking.
There's no parachutes.
My first match, I was like, how do I deploy? And I just hit the building, and I get up, and I'm fine.
I feel like there's an analogy there between how early the game is. It's like they just shipped it out the door without a parachute, just like a character. And an unfortunate aspect right now is in character creation.
Oh yeah,
right. So you go to create a character, you can change your hairstyle, and you can, there's all these different 80s. That's the main microtransaction thing right now. You can buy clothes that are all weird, wacky 80s textures, but it's like under the create a female character option, it just says coming soon. I think
women coming soon. Not a good look.
Yikes!
Not a good look.
We've been down that road. Anyway,
I don't know, but I don't know. Chris, like, have you found you're kind of like our guy for finding funny shit you can do in a game, and already there's a couple of gifts you provided in that article we wrote. One of which is throwing down a trampoline and firing rockets in the air. You can ride a bike. There's a BMX bike. It's a piece of shit right now, but do you think if it leans into that kind of thing, it could be fun and stick around and find an audience, or is that stuff all just novel?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed what I've played of it so far. I think it kind of feels like that you have a choice to do what other battle royale games are doing, or try to find your own thing to do. And both of those, I think there's a certain amount of kind of risk to it, because you don't want to be the same. But if you're too different, you can also turn players away. I think this is nice. It's not as kind of intense as something like PUBG. It's not as intimidating as Fortnite with all the building stuff. It is pretty quick to jump in and kind of figure out the basics of what to do. And there is some fun stuff. Like the bikes are terrible, but like I was just running around, and a little bike icon appeared on the screen, and it was there was a bike there, and then you have to race to another point on the map. It was like a little time challenge. It was like, how weird is that in the middle of a battle royale game that I'm just doing a bike race by myself while other people are killing? It's just a weird thing, but and I did it, and I got some cool gold armor. It's like, well, that was weird, but also kind of great because that's something I haven't seen in a battle royale game, which is usually focused on just kill everybody.
I think that's a super good breakdown. First of all, like way better than what I was saying. but yeah, that's the right thing to call out. Like, I would love to see what happens, and the answer might be terrible gameplay that's boring and like unfocused and alienating. I would love to see what happens though if they add these kind of mini games to this context where. And it becomes almost like a mockery of the concept of battle royale, and it almost feels like more GTA or like an extreme sports game where, okay, like sure you can like try to become number one and like kill all the dudes with your sick headshots. Actually, I'm gonna run over here and like do some cool backflips on my bike, or I don't know, like what else could they do there? You know, to just populate this game space with ridiculous distractions, and just imagine, you know, you're like lining up a sniper shot or something, and like some dude does a double backflip like and you like follow him, and you're like, no, go on, brave sir. Like,
you don't deserve this.
Continue.
Not this way.
I tip my hat to you. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
there might be nothing there, but it's something different, and I guess like I want to hear a little bit from you guys. I know we're already like it's been an hour in the show, but like. Something I see a lot of in Twitter comments and website comments and Reddit is just this kind of general, I don't want to say everybody, but there's a growing now, not resentment, but just sort of like eye rolling of like, oh, more battle royale, or like, well, of course, like this studio is like turning their game into battle royale because that's what's popular now. And as an FPS player, I have the opposite response. I'm like, fuck yeah. I like this genre.
Me too.
I don't like everything in the genre, but it's fun. I can get a lot of people in there with a lot of different skill sets. It's pretty accessible. And I'm interested to see what people do with it. I want more experimentation and iteration and weirdness, like, you know, BMX biking within this genre. But I don't know, what am I getting at? Just like, how do you guys feel about that, like kind of growing? I don't know. Do you guys observe the same level of like just like fatigue already? I feel like it's only been like 8 months that this genre has existed.
Comment sections.
I know H1Z1 and blah blah blah, but like has been popular practically.
Right. Yeah, I think there's like, I don't know. There's like sort of a collective groan anytime a new battle royale game is announced, and anytime Fortnite is mentioned. Any game post PUBG that is battle royale that is mentioned gets sort of like guaranteed eye rolls from people, despite how popular they are, despite how fun they might be. I think I don't know. There's this weird embedded response to the genre that is like nothing can do it again after PUBG some reason, and PUBG is like the most stripped down, basic like version take on this you know kind of game. Fortnite has its own spin, and I think early as it is, Radical Heights, I keep wanting to call it Radical Ownage, has like, I'm happy it's releasing this early. I hope it pans out for them because they can really like, and I think they will have to steer it in a super unique direction and lean into this game show stuff and get wild and like as Chris has said more time, like plenty times in chat, more radical than it already is. Like, it's I don't know like how to combat that because I think it's just like it's like a new genre and anything, and there's like some reason like the format is like, despite how team deathmatch and all these like Quake had inspired dozens and dozens, well hundreds of games, like I don't know why battle royale can't do the same. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
I guess I feel like that's how not just games but how genres work and how stuff works. And there's like elements that can feel overly derivative and uninspired, but you know, Doom came out and then a bunch of people made Doom style games for a while, and Quake came out and a lot of people did that for a while, and Counter-Strike and Battlefield, and you know, like that's how people find these variations and new mechanics, new systems, make UI improvements, like tech innovations to draw distance, like all that stuff. That's how it happens, like, wow, people like this stuff, so let's take it in this new direction. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's kind of silly to be pointing at this, because it's probably just people doing what they do on the internet, which is like looking for something to be mad about and hating on shit that's popular. Like hating on a popular game does not make you an interesting person. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, and like you see people saying like, oh, they're just trying to battle royale craze. Well, the reason there's a craze is because people really are enjoying it. They're really enjoying a lot of these games. Starting with H1Z1 was massive. For Battle Royale, and obviously PUBG and Fortnite. And it's not like we don't see failures along the way. Ark had a Battle Royale standalone game that went nowhere. There's been a few other little ones that pop up and don't go anywhere because they haven't figured out the formula. So it's not like there's some guarantee that if a developer's like, we're going to throw everything Battle Royale and get in on this, like, you still have to make a game that people find compelling and interesting and fun. So it's, I can understand people feeling a little weary because it feels like there are a lot and there is a lot of this news coming out, but at the same time, people are playing these games like crazy. So people want them. So what's the problem with trying to give players something that they want?
Yeah. And I guess part of what I'm getting at too is the notion that there's almost this implicit notion when I see one of these comments that the developer should be doing something else, something more original with their time, right? Like, okay. It's as if like this isn't the most interesting, vibrant time for PC game that's ever existed. Yeah. It is. So like, if you don't like this shit, there's like hundreds of games every month. You can say what isn't a game. You can make those distinctions. There are safely dozens of interesting games that are worth your time and attention every month, depending on your preferences.
Yeah, we write about them every single day.
That wasn't the case in 2008, 2009 necessarily. It's crazy. Like, have you guys heard of that? Okay, here's one. You heard about this game called NeoCab?
Wait, what?
One of the last drivers in a far future that's controlled by AI technology, and you're driving like an Uber vehicle. And it's like an adventure game where you talk with the people behind you in the back seat and you make dialogue choices with them. Right. And it has an innovative like facial animation system, so you have to like read your passenger in the back seat and sort of get a sense of their mood and their intentions. Are they lying to you? There's sort of a mystery underpinning it, and it's developed by some of the like really talented folks that made games like Firewatch. Like, that's a game that exists that maybe a lot of people listening haven't even heard of. Yeah. That's worth your time, worth your attention, probably going to be really cool. I don't know. Like, it's an amazing time. So just, I guess like what rubs me the wrong way is just this cynicism around cool shit. It bugs the hell out of me because gaming is so good right now. Yeah. And so fun. Yeah.
Bring on Battle Royale. More Battle Royale.
Yeah. There's going to be tons more.
I'm excited.
Look at we'll maybe talk about it in another show, but look at Maverick's Proving Grounds. This is one that Chris, I believe, got to play.
I'll link to that in chat.
Oh yeah, that's got a 400 player planned battle royale mode. Also, I played a VR battle royale game that I can't shoot. What was it called? I'll have to look it up, but I played it was a VR battle royale game. It was very early access. I mean, you think Radical Heights is early access. This was really, really early access, but it had this wonderful thing where when you're running around with other players in VR, you can reach out and grab the gun out of their hands. It was one of the funniest moments I had in a game in a long time, as I was looking for a guy. I knew he was in the room. He was hiding under the table on his hands and knees, which meant the player in VR had actually, in his room, gotten down on his hands and knees. I stupidly, bend down too, even though the table doesn't exist, to shoot him. I bend down, and I put my gun under the table. He grabs it out of my hand, and then we have this fight where I grab it from him, he grabs it from me. It was ridiculous. It was the funniest thing.
Sounds like the Three Stooges in VR with guns, which is simultaneously the best and worst premise I can think of for a game.
It was ridiculous. I wish I'd had my mic recording because I almost couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard.
Jeez.
And of course, at the ending, when after he killed me, someone immediately appeared and killed him. It was like battle royale moment. So.
Oh man.
So there's obviously potential to do different things with it still.
Tons of potential for slapstick in Battle Royale. We should move on to questions before we...
We're going to table the future of Far Cry discussion, maybe for next week. We'll see. But let's move on to listener questions right now. If you have a question for us in Twitch chat, just tag @PCGamer with your question, and we'll get to, if you can. We do favor questions from our PC Gamer Club Discord that we collect usually the morning of or the day before. So we'll get to those first. If you want to know more about the PC Gamer Club, go to club.pcgamer.com. It's a pretty cool subscription service. You get like $5 a month. You get an ad-free experience on the site. You get a digital subscription to our magazine. You get a free game each month. You get access to whatever like beta keys we happen to get first and foremost. I know the PUBG Savage alpha test was part of that. Hunt Showdown a couple months ago was part of that.
Yeah.
Some really cool stuff. Among other things like high resolution glossy JPEG of Tub Geralt. And you also get an invite to our Discord, which is a growing community of really, really cool people that we love. Mm-hmm. And I see some of you in chat. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
It is a great way to support us and our work.
Yep, definitely.
We appreciate it a ton, but if you don't, no big deal either.
Yeah, we're trying to make it cooler, the subscription cooler all the time. So that's, again, club.pcgamer.com. Let's get to our first question, and I'm going to skip to the bottom of the questions because I think this is a good one we should definitely hit. Silent Marine, any take on the new Steam privacy settings versus Steam Spy? So if you guys don't know, there was an update to the Steam privacy settings that I think by default hides what games you are playing from makes it a private setting. So it hides it from the public. You can't scrape it with servers or whatever else you have. And Steam Spy, which is this like data collection site that makes rough analysis of and charts of like how games sell and who's playing them and anything you can imagine that they can scrape from a public profile, they can't operate anymore, which is, I don't know, it's a complex thing because this data was not accurate, and sometimes I think we've engendered sort of the apprenticeship of observation in a lot of people who sort of became data analysis experts overnight.
Sure.
From glancing at a graph.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this? Is this like a bad thing overall? Is this a good thing overall? Are we going to feel this in any way? Does it matter?
Yeah. Steam Spy was a useful tool to us. There are many useful tools that we use in making coverage, and I think it was likewise a useful tool for the gaming audience to have a sense of how well a game's doing and how well a sale performed and stuff like that. Within the industry itself too, I know for a fact that tons of independent publishers, marketers, PR people, indie devs working in their basements, Steam Spy is a great way of verifying trends that they think to be correct, so they can see like, oh wow, Stellaris probably sold this many copies. That's really cool that this kind of audience exists for Sci-Fi 4X. This confirms like my desire to build this kind of game or something, right? Or they can budget based on sales, you know what I mean? Because they be able to see like, okay, these 3 games sold that much, so I can probably do this much. It's useful in that regard for folks who don't have access to like a market research department like EA and stuff like that, right? At the same time, there's an element of like if you care about data privacy, it sort of sucks that like a third party could make pretty good guesses. We believe, plus or minus with plenty of margin for error, about how everything's sold and expose that to the public, kind of without a developer's consent.
Yeah.
And again, it's not the exact data, so how do you how do you regulate that exactly? But it's not something developers could opt out of. And I saw at least one kind of public dispute, I won't name which publisher it was, between them and Steam Spy and sort of wanting to have their information made private. So I don't know. I guess like my big response is like Steam Spy was like yet another thing that distinguished the PC gaming platform from closed systems, closed gaming platforms. We had access to estimated sales data. That's something I can't get on Xbox or PlayStation. They might publish a chart on the top 10, but I won't know that like on February 3rd, Spelunky sold 3,000 copies or something, right? It's really cool that that data was out there in the wild, even it was like, not completely accurate. We could make some educated guesses, and it helped support our pieces in general. Without getting into too much, we don't have a lot of time left. The negative kind of contribution that I think Steam Spy probably made to the industry in the time that it was around, or the kind of thing that helped amplify that I am not crazy about, is what I'm going to refer to as like toxic scorekeeping of like game performance, right? We see it a lot with concurrency data. And unfortunately, I don't know how much how much time you guys spend on certain subreddits and stuff like that. But something I've seen a lot over the past year or two is like this. You saw it a lot with No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
But more and more with other games, weaponizing concurrency data to like make a point on Reddit and like rub it in a developer's face. And I've seen threads over the past couple months like, this game came out and now a week later it's dropped players by 30%. And like these people are making these judgments, and they're not statisticians, and they're conflating concurrent players, which is the number of players playing a game at that moment, with audience and sales. These are all different numbers, and different games can have. It's not a one-to-one thing of like, well, if 10,000 players are playing this game right now, that means it sold 10 times as many copies. Like every game has probably different variants there with. Multiplayer games that have like long session times they might have higher concurrency or something like that. Whereas like a single player game, people are playing it at odd hours or whatever else, or might be like a game that's popular in one region as opposed to worldwide. So like that figure would be more flat versus spikier. So again, like I wasn't crazy about, and I'm not saying like I'm a statistician or something. I hope we use that stuff responsibly. I guess I wasn't crazy about like the kind of forum rhetoric of like, I'm using a number, therefore like I have data to back up my like stupid bullshit on Reddit, like 3,409, haha, like go to hell, dude. Like, so I just saw a lot of like careless uses of that, and I guess a side effect of like Steam Spy's closure is people won't be able to use it for that kind of thing. But it's probably a net negative that it's gone. No, I'm gonna say it is. I
feel for the tiny devs trying to figure out what the fuck to do in a very volatile time to make indie games. It's
exactly
rough stuff. Cool.
It'll definitely be missed. I mean, it was always kind of a grain of salt type of website. But when you think about a game that's not on Steam at all, like how there's this void of information, like we don't have no idea like how they're doing. It's sort of weird. It's like, oh, I was gonna go look up this game and I can't because it's not on Steam. And excuse me, just losing kind of Steam Spy and that extra bit of data, even if you don't rely on the hard numbers just to get a general idea, like you said, of trends of things like that. I don't know, like a big gap, and now we've lost a bit of the information that we used to be able to use or look at.
Pour one out on the curb for Steam Spy.
Literally. Well, speaking of pouring one out, really quick question from JBJ Blaze. What are you guys drinking?
It's the best LaCroix flavor, apricot, obviously.
I was going to ask where it's your rank. It's your top?
Oh, yeah. It's
number one.
It's easily number one.
This is true gamer fuel. I don't know if you guys know this. This is the actual gamer fuel. I'm partial to... I have this weird, perverse, like, love-hate affair with coconut. Like, it's sort of like the Schrodinger's cat of LaCroix, where 1 second it tastes like sunscreen, the next time it tastes like a tropical paradise.
Pina colada.
It doesn't make any sense, but...
Perception is reality. It's basically a metaphysical lesson in a can, guys. Go get some.
Tasty, hydrating drink.
LaCroix, it's for gamers.
For gamers. They should put that on the can. Next question. Favis. I'm asking it again because I ignored it last week, James ignored it last week. Favis asks, I just bought an Oculus Rift cheap. What are the must-have games / experiences for it? I mean, that's a tough question. I'm not like up to speed on the latest and greatest in Oculus, but Chris, you've been playing some VR. Is there anything that you'd recommend right now?
Yeah, I've got a Vive though, but I think much everything is
at this point.
Not everything, but most things I think seem to be for both headsets. I guess it depends on. I don't think there really is a must-have, which I think is maybe one of the issues with VR. Yeah. There's lots of fun stuff though. I mean, you can still play The Lab, which is Valve's cool little sort of a game. I've enjoyed Skyrim and Fallout both in VR with some limitations. They're not truly immersive experiences because retrofitted. Shoot me, but Rick and Morty is, I mean, I'm not just saying as a Rick and Morty fan, I'm saying like it's a really great, incredibly interactive environment in this garage. It's one of the best environments for really fooling your brain into thinking you're in a different spot. And it sounds weird to say about a game that's a cartoon that takes place in a garage. It's not this beautiful, amazing, oh my gosh, I'm in a photorealistic landscape. But they did such a great job making the VR feel natural to pick something up and twist the lid off and pour a thing into another thing.
Yep.
That you stop thinking about using controllers, feel like you're really your hands. And I don't know, it's probably one of the best. It's a very short game. There's not much to it, but just messing around is, I think, one of the better VR experiences out there.
Yeah, it's from the, I think, Alchemy Labs. Alchemy Labs, the job simulator devs. And they are also making a new game.
Accounting? No, that's already out.
Accounting is maybe another one to try. I guess there's
Is it Budget Cuts? Because I played...
Budget Cuts is really good.
Budget Cuts is good. Yeah. They're making... I think of like a vacation simulator sort of.
Vacation simulator. I tried that. Right. I tried that at GDC.
That's right.
Super Hot VR. That's just the obvious.
Hell yeah.
That is the number one. I'm going to put Thumper in there too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Ooh.
And Hover Junkers too.
Some really good ones. Thumper in VR that game is already like incredible on a flat screen, but in VR it's like you're actually dying. That's what it feels like.
It does. I mean, yeah, it is like the passage from this world to the next. That's definitely what that game is in music form and like
cool
metallic Beatle form.
Yeah, it's so good.
But also Guitar Hero.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, and Standout VR Battle Royale. That's the Battle Royale.
Oh yeah.
Game. I played Standout. It was very rough, but that was one of the funniest moments I've had in VR and in a game.
Cool.
Fighting over a gun with someone.
Thanks for all the good recommendations, Chris. Next question. Acid Wolf. Wolf is in capital letters. James. This is for everyone. In what type of game do you prefer to mute the in-game music and play your own soundtrack? And are there particular genres of music you play with different games? Do you guys have any, like, the podcast game? I guess is how we dub them.
I don't listen to podcasts.
No, you don't do
game. That's... My brain doesn't work that way. Like I'm not going to be paying attention to one of those things.
Right.
There's like no point. Just Cause 3, you get like every Bond movie soundtrack, every like crazy action movie theme, and it just becomes an amazing riot because the music like inspires you to do dumb shit in Just Cause.
Perfect
like,
recommendation.
You know, throw dynamite on that, jump in the helicopter.
It's Mickey Mouse.
Highly recommended.
Cool.
And like 4X games, Civ and stuff like that, Stellaris, I'll just get in like every cool sci-fi, you know, Hans Zimmer or whatever. It just works really nicely.
Good recommendations. I don't really have any because there are not many games that I don't play a lot of multiplayer or passive games. Lately with Fortnite, I've been pairing it with Boards of Canada, which just doesn't make sense at all. But it's just like my do anything passively music, writing, playing Fortnite, sitting on the bus and contemplating my existence. It's all good for that.
Nice.
Chris, do you have any recommendations?
I don't. I usually, like, honestly, one of the first things I do when I start a game is down or off. I'm very distracted by Like, I couldn't listen to a podcast and, like Evan said, and do something. Like, I could never, even before it was illegal, like, I could never talk on the phone while driving. I can't even someone talk. If I'm driving around looking for directions, I have to looking for a road sign, I have to turn the radio off. There's something about sound and voices and noise that, like, I just have to, like, it screws up how I think, even in a basic way. So I don't listen to stuff.
Gotcha.
Fair enough. Thanks for the question, Acid Wolf. Mox, anyone on the team have their eye on something in 2018? Thank you for using the good number. That they think might be a 90%er. And then they gave us a kissing heart emoji. I don't even, like, when I think about what's coming out, I can't even...
Pillars 2.
Pillars 2 could be.
Splunky 2 probably won't release this year, but, like, certainly, like, that won a game of the year from us. Whoops. In 2013. No, it's a lovely game.
Great game.
But a lot of criticism for that one. Yeah, what else? I mean...
Is Metro this year or next year?
I think it's...
Is it 2019?
I think it's this year, yeah.
I guess I think I'm still a sucker for, like, post-apocalyptic Russia, dreary, grim stuff somehow. I don't know. Every now and then I feel that pull back to thing that Stalker did to me the first time.
That's fair. That's good. Fortnite? Battle Royale? No. I don't know. I don't really... There's nothing, like, on my radar right now. I can't see past June at this point, mentally.
Yeah. Hard to do.
But...
Pillars 2, I mean, who knows if Mountain Blade 2 will come out this year. That's like a big anticipated thing.
Big little question mark on that, yeah.
Cyberpunk is definitely not coming out this year.
No.
So I don't know. It's you know,
I'm looking forward to Frostpunk. Speaking of punk, something punk, Frostpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's this year.
Which was very promising.
That should be cool. And, like, to be clear, we don't like think ahead and we're like, oh, what games are going to score 90? I mean,
no,
we're just thinking generally about what games we're anticipating and, like,
that we, you know,
we've already had some exposure to.
Yeah.
You know, if we played stuff, we have a sense of how good it is. Obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't know. That's your answer, Mox. Let's see here. JBJ Blaze again. For the show, what do you guys think of Overwatch Retribution? I don't think anyone here is really an Overwatch player.
It just came out yesterday?
Pretty recently, yeah, I think yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a new PvE mode, sort of like part of the, what are they calling it, the Overwatch archives now.
I really like the first one.
Yeah, it was a good time.
I played it like crazy. I think the game lends itself really well to that format. So it's going to get me back playing Overwatch, which hasn't happened in a month or so.
So we'll let you know, I'm sure, soon enough. Let me scroll back up and check this. What are your thoughts on PUBG Corp and Bluehole suing various other devs who are making battle royale games? There's so much, like, legal nuance to that that, you know, I don't know if I can really make a conclusion. Like, I know that, like, a mobile game was using a frying pan. And that was sort of like the focal point, at least, like, from the outside looking in, for the case.
Yeah. I think it has merit in the marketing and stuff like that, and stuff like logo similarities, which you see even on Steam and stuff that, like, bugs the hell out of me. So I imagine just infuriates them. I know it, like, without being, like, culturalist, I know it is a thing that seems to happen more in, like, the mobile gaming market in Asia and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's like a good thing for us to talk to a lawyer about it, for an article perhaps we can look into more carefully. But as far as I know, it's not like they're chasing, you know, Cliffy B down or something.
He's holed up in a bunker in Montana right now. Yeah. So thanks for all the questions, everyone. That's all the time we have for this week for the show. But you can always catch us here, twitch.tv/PCGamer at 1 p.m. Pacific time. I almost said Eastern. I don't know what's wrong with me. Or shortly after on youtube.com/PCGamer if you want the VOD. You can go to PCGamer.com/tag/podcast to catch up with our archive of shows, or to find the iTunes subscription feed, our RSS subscription feed, or to just listen to the show or download an MP3 directly if that's your jam. I ain't judging. But until next week, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.